Welcome to Loleventvods. Watch the full game of today's LEC 2025 matchup.
So the Garen naturally targeted towards Adam. We saw his proficiency on the champion on day one. Victor going to be removed from the pool as well. Callista, Ashe, Varus all still up and available. I say Ashe, I expected her to be high on the priority list, but really she hasn't risen to priority, at least here in Europe. Victor is something that teams have put a lot of priority on. Callista becomes the next main champion that a lot of these teams will look to try and grab. Bear in mind it is Ice, typically known for his Varus throughout his LEC career. So we'll see what the priority ends up being, as that is in fact taken off the board.
And a good call, BDS, right? For Ice, no stranger to both builds. I think the best lethality Varus last year in Winter when it was really at its most popular. One of the few players who can consistently land those Qs in the clutch moment. But Corki, of course, as powerful as ever. It's been described as a fake flex because in other regions they played exclusively mid and we played exclusively bot, but we'll see if it's a little bit less fake today, as 3 control mages in the mid lane have already been banned away, so that pool is notably smaller. And while Garen is off the board, Adam does still have the luxury of counter pick on red side if he wants to hold out. See if that's what they're looking for.
I mean, with a lot of mages gone, I'm curious as to what direction Larson will end up going. Obviously, we know him traditionally as a mage player, but when we kind of look at the mid pool, things like Talia kind of rise in priority, and with Corki taken off the board as well. I'm very curious as to what direction they'll end up going. Callista, Maokai going to be the response, like the response coming out from Rogue. Does make a lot of sense. We have a lot of power on the bot side of the map. The 2 versus 2, both Maokai and Sejuani. Typically, I prefer the Maokai just because of the flexibility of the champion. We haven't seen it be played top, but last year in the LEC, it was played a decent amount on the top side, as well as the fact that you can flex it into the support role. Marang saying, you know what, I want that little bit more early skirmishing power that Sejuani can provide, potential synergy depending on what mid laner you want to pair it up with, and an easy engage as well.
And we saw yesterday, right? Day 1, Malrang did pull out the Maokai. Was a bit of a slower early game. Seems like a champion, the Sejuani, that he's more comfortable on pulling the trigger, going for those fast engages. 113, we'll see what he wants to do here. Both these players, often the ones initiating the plays. And 113 coming off a tough game yesterday, even with BDS able to kind of bring it back with some incredible play from Paras and Nuke. See if they can keep that momentum going forward as Rogue. They were here a lot yesterday. It was basically a 60-minute game, and they were close as so many points to winning it. And you know that has to sting. They're hoping to find that win here.
You're going to get to see Adam's Olaf as a response to the Cassante. You know, it's ironic that we just heard from Adam talking about how your champion needs to be able to lane swap in the current meta. So we'll see how things pan out, because right now Rogue would love to get standard lanes, drafting both Callista and Olaf. But I don't know if BDS is going to be willing to give it to them. Ezreal going to be joining the ranks of AD carry bans. I wonder now if we'll see something like the Jinx taken away. Ashe, I think, would be a good ban. When I think of Ice, Ashe and Varus were his go-to champions last year. Ashe, in particular, into Callista is also a very good pick, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that ban come through.
And you can see they are respecting the potential for Corki to go into the mid lane because they're banning that Ezreal. They're saying, hey, we want this AD pool even smaller. We're happy with the Corki lane. We don't want to put up with anything else. Now Renata taken away. Potentially could be another range support to follow.
They may ban, well, I was going to say they could consider Blitzcrank depending on what they're thinking on the bot side, but I'll hold my breath for now. Oh, it's going to be the Jinx instead, so Rogue really asking for the Ashe pick. I guess the counter argument is, sure, while the Callista might not have a great time into the Ashe, Olaf loves playing into the Ashe. There's very little that she can do. So much of her power comes from the utility that she provides and all her slows, and that doesn't apply to Olaf.
Yeah, and with the changes to Ashe, still obviously a solid matchup in a lot of ways, but not quite as much of a hard counter in terms of feels bad laning phase, given the changes to the way that Callista's passive works. Slow's not as effective as they once were. But what is the option going to be here? Easy support, save, likely mid lane for 5th pick. Rel in general, I still think kind of pick of the litter when it comes to support options. Seems to remain the best engaged champ from what we've seen over these first few days at least.
Ooh. Quick swap.
Ooh. Larson Cassio against Nuke?
Yeah, I thought I was looking at BDS for a second there. Nuke is traditionally the Cassio player that we have in the LEC. I'm going to have to look back through Larson's history, because from what I recall, I don't remember a Cassio game ever coming out from Larson in his LEC career.
I mean, it's going to be a deep cut for sure. Nothing in recent memory. Now BDS get a little bit of time, have to lock in their last 2 champions. Rel feels like an easy pickup, does give Execute the option to counter. although a bit tough to do. Rel just universally pretty solid. Last option here, Talia the hover. Will be tricky. Larson the Casio, obviously the big question. Alongside Patrick on the Kalista, very different look between day 2 and day 3 Rogue. Much shorter range carry threats, not the same long range scaling backliners we saw in their long game yesterday. And Hui now the answer, who very clearly wants to keep the shorter range champions as far away as humanly possible. Might be tricky if the Leona does get locked in, power that solar flare, but overall, not too bad of a position for BDS in draft.
I mean, so far we're seeing, well, very traditionally a lot of teamfight compositions in the current meta, and that looks like it's going to maintain that way. Obviously, with the Corki and the Hui, you've got a lot of long-range poke on the side of BDS, looking to, as you rightly said, keep the enemy at arm's length with a few engage options and disengage tools. I do quite like what Rogue have brought out for themselves, though. A lot of early game power on the bot side of the map. If they can get that 1v1 matchup on the top side, Adam has the ability to run away with it, and the ability to run down their opposition with the amount of engage that they have. Ultimately, it's going to be a question of who is able to execute better on the fights.
Crucial question. Of course, I'm just going to also call out feats of strength. I think for a lot of people in solo queue, you know, the extra 5 movement speed feels good. But in a game like this, Olaf having tier 3 Swifties, it matters a lot. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there because we're quite far away from feats of strength, but I'll just call it out now, just plant the seed.
The man's like, I don't need to run Ghost anymore.
Yeah,
I
it's
can just
as long as you get the feats of strength, you are going to zoom. Rogue now invading on the level 1. See what the call is in terms of lane swap. A lot of presence here shown, 4 members. Don't think anyone's likely to contest. Olaf level 1, very strong as long as you keep landing those axes. Rogue very aware of their own early game power, so trying to leverage that for some bot side control here.
Ooh, I like that ward. The positioning of the ward there from Patrick basically gives information as to where the swap is likely to happen. Paris going to be forced to walk over it, spot it out. Not quite yet though, of course, because BDS recognize the situation that they're in. Rogue anticipating a potential swap. They haven't seen the bot lane just yet.
Paris waiting as long as possible, good patience.
And then immediately the swap back comes through from Patrick. So great ward, ultimately pays off. Rogue get the standard lanes that they were looking for, trying to match in the 2 versus 2. And BDS now going to be, well, I think in the early push, BDS should be able to get a bit of an advantage. But once that level 2 comes through, Rogue can definitely look to start fighting.
Corki, yeah, I mean, just notoriously very obnoxious to deal with. See what the level 2 does look like. Looks like they're just going to concede wave prio here. But as you said, good heads-up play from Rogue to get that ward down. BDS showed the patience to, you know, to at least show as late as humanly possible, but Patrick and Execute weren't too far gone. We're able to make it back to bottom lane in time. And standard lanes, which, honestly, great. I love standard lanes. I didn't think they were special, but after last year, they feel special sometimes. You know, honest 1v1s. Top laners getting ignored, as, you know, as was intended.
As was intended. The cinematic really doing us justice. Darius and Trundle. Really an homage to what top lane experience truly is like.
Yeah.
The irony is I love that it had so many spectators too, because that is what the game was designed, right? That's what you're just watching.
Just watching. You don't go up there. That's top laners are in their own little world. League is a 4v4 game with a weird 1v1 side component.
Right.
For ego battles.
At least that's what top laners would like, but in reality, jungle.
Yeah, in reality, yeah.
Malrang has snuck his way in. We'll see that the red buff hasn't been started in 1-1-3.
This is going to be pretty easy for Malrang to get a lot of damage down, or at least force 1-1-3 away. Isn't going to overstay, immediately sees the run for Paris and is going to respect that, but tough for 1-1-3 to re-enter. Does have some healing on the passive, but obviously red buff early on is just going to completely outvalue the blue buff, and Maokai not really known for early damage output.
Ultimately a small advantage gain for Malrang, leveraging the pressure that he has in the bot lane 2 versus 2 to steal away a camp and force 1-1-3 back to base. There is the opportunity for a double scuttle. We'll see if Malrang decides to go for it. Has the bot 1 completely uncontested. Could immediately cross over to top, but he does of course still have his bot side camps that he needs to clear. So would be ambitious, I would say, to go for both scuttle crabs, especially with Maokai already making his way towards that.
Relevant doing well. Trying to keep Adam at arm's length. Obviously, the low health bar can be deceptive in the isolated 1v1, but does set him up to be quite vulnerable for a gank if they just get a bit of extra damage. And CC now, however, the engage in bottom lane. Retreat coming in for Ice. Ignite down for a little bit more damage, not doing too much, but Rogue very clearly in control of this lane. Ice, no TP, can't also really afford to stay without good information on where Malrang is.
So he's forced to disengage. As you rightly called, with the Maokai on the top side of the map, the risk of a dive is very real. He's forced to go back to base here. And this is, well, this is why Rogue wanted the standard lanes. It was why they invested in that early vision control, and they wanted to make sure they could get that 2 versus 2 in the bot side of the map. Now a 10 CS lead and already a small gold advantage building for the bot lane.
I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, BDS. But when Rogue were really good,
Yeah.
all early game, crazy jungler. And what I'm seeing right now, in this game at the very least, this is the first game we've seen it, but it's a lot of early game power and a crazy jungler. And that honestly might be enough to snowball them to a bigger lead.
For those that weren't around for the era of Rogue, which to new viewers may come as a bit of a surprise, but Rogue were consistently a top team in the LEC, and a large part of that was they had a strategy of drafting winning lanes. And it might seem like, well, duh, but they were very good at getting these winning lanes, and they leveraged that to great efficiency in the early game. Right now, they're looking to take a page out of that old playbook as they leverage their strong bot side of the map to secure themselves first dragon. With 113 on the bot side of the map, it makes a cross map for the Grubs a little bit harder. But 113 has found a way in.
All right.
Flashes.
Good smite. Does manage to make it over the wall. Malrang, though, still doing okay. Para's going to follow. Malrang likely to fall here, but he did get the objective he came for. Nuke trying to come in and snipe the kill with the Severing Bolt. Flash out from Malrang to deny Nuke some gold, but he was for sure dead there either way. Perhaps just instinct at that point.
I will say I'm surprised that Malrang, after dashing over the wall, 113 followed him. He could have then just flashed back into the pit. And I felt that being closer to executing Patrick, I don't see why they wouldn't have been able to win that, because now 113 already committed the flash earlier to get into the pit to try and steal the dragon away. So I will say I'm a little surprised. The reason why I assume he flashed away from Hui is because he didn't want to hand that first blood over to Nuke. But I mean, it just went over to Corki instead, so I don't know if necessarily better. In any case, Execute looking for a play.
Execute, Aftershock fades away, and now Ice really just gets to turn back and load some damage. A bit too much of a chunk there for how little damage they got down on Ice, so putting themselves in a bit of a disadvantageous state as he's starting to roam up. Looks like Lane Prile was the goal, that was Rogue now starting their second objective of the game. BDS were able to grab that first kill. They are one step closer to the feats of strength, but it's the second objective for Rogue if they're able to grab all 3.
I mean, I guess the payoff of dying from Malrang, quick reset back to base, heads back out onto the map immediately. Adam also getting a reset off, allows him to get the push. Irrelevant hadn't had that opportunity yet. Now he's gone back to base, and it's going to pick up that chain vest. But ultimately, things paying off in terms of early objective control. The next objective for Rogue will secure them the feats of strength, which means that it's going to be a race for that first town.
And again, early pushing prio thus far has been going in favor of Rogue. Some plates down. The gold still in favor of BDS, a lot of that because of the first blood. And of course, Nuke able to make it through the early lane phase relatively unscathed. Level 7 now with a lost chapter. More than enough mana that he doesn't really need to approach Larson anymore, or too much at the very least.
I will say, after the first day of games, I was a little disappointed. Malrang and Execute on the same team. My expectations
that was
were incredibly
high. I got you really hyped.
No, I mean, it wasn't just you. I was also very excited. I mean, how can you not see these
Those
players?
two names next to each other. If you don't know, Execute, formerly known as Jonghoon, if you're not in the loop, just to
former Astralis player. I mean, the reason why his name is Execute is massive Pyke fan. Loves Pyke, and sometimes we got to see it from him, but he's just a big playmaker. And you know, when Medic and I cast, it was a slow game. It was a slow affair. And then you and Jack Spectra just walk onto the stage, 60-minute bangarang.
It was, yeah.
And Medic and I were like, they've had more kills in this single game than I think Rogue had all of Summer Split.
Yeah. But honestly, that's the kind of day 1 to day 2 development you want to see.
But now I need to see it here in day 3.
100%.
Because so far they've leveraged their bot lane 2v2 to get a few early objectives. They have conceded first blood. But it's this next objective that's going to be crucial, because the pressure's going to be on BDS, but they might sit there and say, hey, we're not strong enough to fight this, and I want to see Rogue continue to leverage this pressure and the strength that they have in this bot lane 2 versus 2. Patrick does have level 6. Looks like their priority is just clearing out that vision.
Malrang trying to rotate around mid, hoping to catch out Nuke on the way. Dash in, flash forward on the ulti, a little bit awkward, trying to get tricky with it, but now just gets caught up anyway. Perfect use of the Petrifying Gaze, and down goes Nuke.
These are the type of ganks we like to see from Maorang. Nice pathing, circumvents the vision, and is able to set up the kill for Larssen in the mid lane. This Casio getting that kill, going to be very valuable for accelerating this scaling mid lane mage.
Yeah, just a bit messy. Without watching the replay, I can't be 100% certain, but the flash forward felt more like an instinct thing. Obviously very tough to react in that situation, but picking the wrong direction to flash in, costing Nuke there, is there's just no getting away from a Casio when you're that close.
Sure. It's going to be the Rod of Ages now picked up for Larssen. Let's take a quick look back, and Maorang throws out the ulti. I mean, he dodged it.
Did dodge it.
But unfortunately for Nuke, there weren't many other places for him to go. But
yeah, well, you know, sometimes it's a hands diff and sometimes it's a mind control diff. And Maorang got the mind control diffy there. Is Execute finding a little bit of lockup. Ice doing a lot of work in the individual fight. His 1-1-3 tries to make it the hell out, but he's already taken down. Paros needs to get out of there too. Maorang just in time to cover. Double buffs for Patrick, and in the extended fight, Rogue certainly favored, but Ice making sure they don't lose anything else.
The squishy Maokai just gets melted by the bot lane of Rogue. The engage from BDS, trying to leverage the numbers advantage that they have, really doesn't pay off in their favor. And you get to see some of the early game power that this Kalista brings to the composition. 2 kills now on the board for Rogue.
And I think this is the awkward thing, right? About 1-1-3 going for at least AP first item. Leandry's first. The expectation here is that you are so squishy in these fights compared to Maorang, who has the Aftershock, and on top of that is Sejuani already with the Frost Armor. It's just tough for you to compete if you're ever caught out of position.
I mean, yeah, Leona plus Kalista, it's just so much damage in the early game. So many ways in which they can synergize with each other to get all that additional damage, on top of the fact that the additional CC allows you to build up those Ren stacks, and Maorang was on his way, which means that they likely could have ended up trading 1-for-1 regardless, but they end up making it a 1-for-0, and that's going to be the 3rd Dragon of the game. But BDS this time round immediately back out onto the map, make their way towards the Grubs. They're going to concede this Dragon, but this will be a feat of strength heading over to Rogue.
Now it's all eyes on first tower. Kalista obviously known more for neutral objective control than how quickly she takes tower, but if either side fumbles a larger play, tower likely the next thing to be awarded. For now, Irrelevant creating a lot of pressure here on the bottom side. Might look to go all out. Good lockup coming for Execute. Buying a bit more time for the rest of the team to get there to stop him getting anything more in the 1v1 or 2v1 as Patrick shows up, and now needs to survive the dive. This is a rough dive. They need to bait the W, the Pathmaker, as they are unstoppable now. Flash in full, continuing all out from Irrelevant. That is not what you want to be doing. Again, this is why people like Cassante and Pro, is that W button.
It's so difficult to dive these towers on the new patch, and it's made even harder when Irrelevant plays like that. The fact that Maorang took the tower aggro initially, and then when Execute was stuck underneath the tower and the aggro swapped, Irrelevant immediately turned his attention onto the target that had the aggro of the tower. Beautifully played. He ends up getting himself a kill. He staves off the dive, and they end up equalizing the kills.
And I think the big struggle there is while there's a decent amount of magic damage coming in, right, the main chunk of it is still physical damage, and Irrelevant only has armor. If Nuke is there, or excuse me, if Larssen is there and in the area, they might have enough to finish the job, but it just does not work out. Credit to Irrelevant for surviving, and kind of a reminder. We see this, I think every year this is a lesson that people have to relearn, is that like there's one thing that EU top laners are good at, it is surviving dives.
It's true.
And still, everyone tries to dive.
But also, every team that I spoke to coming into the start of the LEC all said diving is way harder now.
Yeah.
and they said, hey, you know what? Let's try and dive one of the hardest champions in the game to dive.
And day 1 Rogue wouldn't have done that. Day 3 Rogue, they did it. It wasn't questionable, but beggars can't be choosers.
You know what?
We wanted
You're
aggression,
right.
We can't be picky.
You're right. My bad, Rogue. My bad.
Yeah.
Nice try. Didn't work out.
Didn't work.
You got Irrelevant's flash. We take those.
Small advantage.
Small advantage. We're waiting for the next major objective to spawn, which means that both teams are basically shifting around their lane. Priorities, the bot lanes move towards mids to make sure that they can have easier control to be able to contest the river on either side. Right now, given the investment on the bot side of the map from BDS, it's the top side camps that are being stolen away by Maorang. What we do think of Maorang as this hyper-aggressive player that constantly looks for ganks. You gotta respect his knowledge and understanding of where to move and how he can punish the enemy jungler as well. And he's doing that right now to 1-1-3. And there's nothing really.
Top side.
They're looking for another dive. They're going for round 2, Dracons.
All right, Irrelevant. Ready to go all out. Round 2, 3v1.
think they're going to get spotted out, though. The Maokai.
1-1-3 here. They were...
A swing and a miss.
Okay, the fight's still continuing, though. Nope, he's out of there.
I think it was just
Phase rush.
Phase rush, yeah. That is a swing and a miss. All right, then. We'll just
gonna
brush that under the
take
rug.
a deep breath. We're going to tweet he like me for real, though, and we're going to move on with our lives.
He like me for real.
Sometimes you just, you see the image in your head, and it just doesn't come together that way, and it's, very human.
I just like that every now and then, pros show that they're human too. Mistakes happen. We miss skill shots. It's all good.
The duality of, man, any of us 1v1 one of these guys, we get clapped immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Also, we get the pleasure of watching them on stage just completely whiff. Yeah, such is life.
Such is life. Now, we return to net neutrality as a minute away on these neutral objectives. Primary vision, I would say, advantage to BDS is they have kind of pockets of wards spread out throughout the entirety of the river. You can see one deep ward on the bot side. I say deep, it's really at the entrance of BDS's jungle, so Rogue haven't really been able to control much of the map, especially given they invested so much to threaten Irrelevant on the dive. So now, as the Dragon is spawning in about a minute, I wonder what the priority will be. Will it be the Herald, or will it, in fact, just be a cross map? Because I think the BDS, they can't really afford to give away another Drake. It is the Chem Drake, with one that many pros consider of lower value, but I still think that it's not a soul that you'd want to give away.
And it's also really good with champions who have or build, like, healing, who are going to cross under that 50% health threshold, like Olaf, like Cassio, like Callista. So it's lower value, but at least the champions on the side of Rogue are champions that can leverage it to its full potential now.
I mean, I just think it offers a lot of value in teamfights, right?
Yeah,
and we are in a very teamfight heavy meta. In any case, you don't want to give that soul over. But the investment is coming through from BDS to the top side of the map for the time being, providing a bit of extra cover for Nuke as he looks to clear out this wave.
First hour, I think, still the big objective in terms of feats of strength. However, Drake, you are right, may end up being more important. That said, just calling out now, AP Maokai, something we brought up earlier, but a lot of passive vision control BDS are going to have on top of their long range means that if they keep the goal this close, I feel like they're going to be pretty favored as we get later in the game in terms of objective setup, just because of the raw amount of poke they have, as you highlighted in draft, and of course, because of the choice to go for the AP Maokai, it's just going to add that little bit extra on top.
Look at this. Nuke already rotating down from the top side. Larson doesn't have this TP available, meaning that BDS will guarantee numbers advantage. Oh, 1-1-3.
Starting to fight. 1-1-3, that is not who you are looking for. You are still a very squishy tree. Instantly cut down. Lumberjack at him. But now the ulti from Hoya coming in is perfect. Nuke finds his man. Is going to lock up Patrick as well. The fall damage is there. Paris looking for a little bit more. Ice and Nuke trying to get involved in the fight. Irrelevant pulling one back in the meantime. Larson's going to have to turn this all back on his lonesome. It's him and Malrang versus the world. Nuke, Ice, Irrelevant backing away. A good fight for BDS.
It's a team fight win because they had the numbers advantage. The engage from 1-1-3 looked sketchy, but the fact that Nuke was there turned the fight in their favor. Keep an eye on the positioning of the carries from BDS as the engage comes through. 1-1-3 tries to force a fight. With Irrelevant coming in from the flank, the idea seems promising, but Nuke and Ice are completely untouched. They're dishing out so much damage from so far away, and this combo of using the QW combined with the ultimate slow means it's so difficult to escape. Unfortunately for BDS, it's Paris that ends up getting that kill onto Patrick, but still, they find the teamfight win, but no objective fail, which means that we return to the map, and the Dragon is on the docket.
And you can see Adam obviously opting for the Black Cleaver. Yes, it's nice to stick to your targets, but it does mean that when that Hui and Maokai are able to lay down so much magic damage, you're really so squishy. TP comes in, completed item for Larson, that's 2 under his belt. Are they going to be able to find this fight and get to soul point? Rogue certainly on the back foot as the objective starts to reset. The poke coming in from Nuke, but Rogue can just look for the engage here. Malrang ulti about to come out. 4K, are they willing to go for the 50-50? Adam just continuing to poke off to the side. Nice solar flare locking up Nuke. Instant follow coming from Larson. A clean combo to keep things going. Malrang looking for a little bit more, but again, it's Nuke still standing, blinking health bar, but it's not going to stop from keeping the fight going. Irrelevant has barely been touched. Ready to get back into the fight. One member lost on the side of Rogue. No one else has gone down.
Engage looked really promising for Rogue, but they couldn't quite convert it into a kill. 5 members of BDS. The health bars are low. Larson and Patrick looking very healthy. Malrang is looking to get some health back, trying to find a flank.
Okay,
Ulti.
going in with the ulti, gonna try to get the work done himself, but the shield coming in from Relevant is clutch. Adam now getting in behind him, but the Dragon has been taken down. A good smite coming in from 113 in the first kill. Now Adam needs to get the hell out. Ulti already used in the fight, Irrelevant on the chase, and it's all falling apart for Rogue. Back and forth, but in the end, BDS again coming out on top.
BDS just dance around Rogue in the fight. While the roster may have changed, BDS's fundamentals of strong team fighting remains firm as they're able to outplay and they deny the sole point away from Rogue. Well executed there from BDS.
And in the mini game of who will get tier 3 boots, they also come out on top. And it might not have mattered to anyone but Adam, but I guarantee it mattered to Adam.
We look back at this engage and a lot of the front line loses its life on the side of Rogue. They get a really nice engage here, but Patrick does what he can to follow up, but then the flashes come through. Maurang can't quite follow up, and then Nuke and Paris able to escape. Ice still very healthy, forces Rogue to disengage with a huge health advantage.
It's just so awkward. Maurang tries to Q flash, but the hitbox is so big that on the other side of the flash, the big boar butt still hits Maokai, and it means he can't get on Nuke to finish the job. And then again here, he's burning even more resources, but Kazante, for some reason, can shield his allies, and that makes the difference.
And with the numbers, they're able to close things out and secure the Dragon as well. BDS, great patience, well executed. Rogue now find themselves on the back foot, 3.5k gold down. Atakan on the board, Irrelevant gonna be the target once more. They've tried this a few times.
The damage from Larson is gonna be crushing here. There's nothing he can do against the Casio. Grounded, he has no way out. Nice pick on the side lane coming in from Rogue, and Atakan potentially next on their list. Mid lane tower does go down, but they got good setup on the objective, and they're going to start at Callista as well. Makes securing the objective that much easier.
Casio is just melting through this objective right now. But you've got to remember that starting this objective is a scary thing to do.
Ulti on to 113, trying to keep him out of the fight. Execute now going to follow, but the objective's still relatively healthy. Pull back. The aggro hasn't reset, but it's only 5k. A ton of spears in its back. They still might be able to secure it. Execute gonna look to body block this one, but he'll likely lose his life in the process. The objective might be all that matters. Larson trying to bit more space, and now they're gonna have the extra life to pull in. All of BDS immediately running. Nuke laying down the blue carpet to try to speed them out to safety, and Rogue walking away with Voracious Atakan, and Execute as well, I believe, going to respawn with the buff. So they're set up to potentially get a little bit more done on the map, although sadly for them, Baron will not be an option.
I mean, Larson offered a lot of value in that fight because he was able to stay present in the bot lane, dodging away from 113's ultimate, and then he could throw out his utility once the re-engage tried to come through from BDS, making it hard for 113 to actually enter the pit and get a smite steal off. So keep your eyes on Larson on the right side. Nice engage coming through from Maurang. The follow-up comes in from Execute. He's pulled out away to safety as the Herald ends up dropping. Ice goes inside it, but I don't think that's what he wanted to do. Quickly evacuates, and then when this Maokai ultimate comes through, watch Larson as he throws down the utility, chucks out the ultimate to try and keep 113 away. The 113 actually got closer than I thought initially. Very close to a steal, but not quite able to secure it, and with the additional GAs, they're forced to retreat.
Credit to BDS for peeling through their carries there, but ultimately Rogue are able to grab the objective. The question, however, is what can they transition it into? This is the struggle. Normally, we've seen Atakan go a little bit later, and it means the straight transition into Baron or a stronger Siege, but there's no real objective on the map to be taken outside of maybe knocking down a couple of towers. But the only lane they have prio in is bot lane. Mid lane just now getting picked up, Irrelevant already pushing in topside, so it's going to be tough to leverage this buff to the fullest.
BDS, given that they have so much of the map in their control still, all of their outer towers, as you rightly said, that's the first tower going down in favor of Rogue. I think they should be fine conceding a few things. They don't have to overfall. I mean, the pressure is on Rogue to reclaim some opportunity back. They're diving.
Going in, CC immune, but not immune to death, although he will be sent packing back to base. Execute withdrawing as well. Rogue getting very little. I think this is about the best you could hope for. It seems like Rogue a little desperate for the force there.
I mean, we talked about it, right? The pressure's on Rogue to try and force something. I think that the execution on that dive really didn't go the way that they wanted. And ideally, you get an extra kill or two. You can use the numbers advantage to convert it into a tower. If they were able to take out Nuke or Ice, then mid lane becomes a much easier objective to be able to siege. Unfortunately for Rogue, they couldn't quite convert it into anything else. They get another kill onto 113. But BDS, they successfully held the line. They only conceded one tower, and they still find themselves in a very comfortable position.
And again, I think Nuke was kind of the hero of the day in some of those clutch moments yesterday, but today, despite the difficult early lane phase, right, they are able to find that first kill, a little bit of a sloppy flash. He's now 4-1-4 after these fights and has a lead over Larson, whereas he was trailing pretty far behind earlier on. This makes things so tough because Larson was that strong point for the team overall, and Patrick wildly far behind this Corki. In past 2 items, Kalista, yes, she's still going to do well, but it's not crit scaling in terms of what she's going to bring to the table.
Here we go. The Dragon's going to be started off by 1-1-3. Adam secures the top tower, has TP available. He's going to channel it now.
Bit of an awkward angle. BDS just walking away. They have the vision to see this coming. Not going to get caught out. Caught out, by the way. 3K lower. Going to be the 50-50 on the smite in the end. The Corki going to be the one who grabs it. Adam going into the midst of the team, but it's just a meat grinder. He instantly gets deleted. Now Larson flashes forward, but this time they're ready for it. Quick reactions to instantly turn that one around. Malrang running as well. This is a complete disaster. Rogue desperate to make a play for the 2nd time in a row, but this time there's no additional life. There's no extra buff, and now Patrick's in trouble.
BDS just play the front to back beautifully. Patient, well executed, and Rogue just get dismantled. Another kill goes over to Nuke. 6-1-6 on the way. And we look back at the replay, look at the positioning. Nuke and Ice right behind the front line. Exactly how you want to play this front to back. They absorb the CC, they get the peel. So much invested onto the front line that doesn't end up dropping. Larson goes for a hero flash in, doesn't really connect onto anyone. And then BDS can just go for the re-engage. I mean, just incredibly well executed from BDS.
I think the thing is BDS are playing way better together as a team. That's what feels like the big difference here for me, because Adam ults and goes in. Execute isn't pushing any buttons on the other side of the wall. He's not in the midst of that fight, whereas you can see when the counter engage from BDS comes in, everyone is using their CC to either hit those priority targets or peel for Nuke. It's been like 3 fights now that this guy's either been untouched or walking away with a blinking health bar with his team there to cover him.
I mean, you look at Ice as well, 3-0-9, 3 items fully completed. A lot of pressure was put on him in the early game, but after getting that first blood, the man hasn't made a mistake so far in this game. He was praised as one of the best AD carries throughout the year in 2024. He's looking to maintain that form here in 2025. BDS looking confident against Rogue as Baron now becomes the priority target.
So difficult for Rogue to even approach here. And it's only going to get worse as Nuke gets more money. 2.5 items here, getting closer to the death cap. Of course, it is 3 items for Larson, although he skips over the boots, so it's a bit deceiving in terms of total gold.
You know, whenever I think of Nuke on Hwei, all I can think of is that Bob Ross play-by-play call that Hysterics made last year. But it was just, I mean, the man paints a picture, you know,
he does
when he's
paint
on
a
this
picture,
champion.
for sure. Happy accident in mid lane, didn't matter, you know? And now, yeah, Rogue have had some not so happy accidents either this game. I think if they really clean up their execution and find that big combo, maybe they can get more done.
I mean, but I think you called it. I think they've kind of been outscaled at this point. I don't know if Patrick has the damage to be able to get through this front line, and you would look at Larson to be then that front line. But in terms of whose front line dies first, I think it's just Rogue's. Like, Adam seems to melt in every exchange. He's going to be forced to ulti here.
No, holding on as long as he can. Really desperate not to ult. Will finally ult, and now it's going to start to run back again. A bit chaotic there. Malrang also throwing out ult, and this is tough to watch. Honestly, a bit scattered for Rogue. Adam does walk away, doesn't have TP, doesn't have flash, doesn't have ulti. And sadly, it just means I don't think he's going to do anything until he has at least one of those cooldowns back up.
I thought the BDS may start the Baron, but still quite ambitious to do so when all you really did was chunk at Adam. You do get a summon a spell, but that's going to make your backline that much safer in the upcoming fights. Without that threat of an all-out flashing on top of your Hwei, you're not really that concerned. TP is now going to come through. BDS looking to maintain pressure around the Baron as they start off the objective.
And again, double AP items for the Maokai, so it's not doing a ton of damage to Malrang, but it's at least taking away that passive, making him that much squishier if he does try to join in on the fight. It may come down to something like a 50-50 steal, but tough for Malrang to do that unexpectedly or unannounced. BDS more than happy to just see what Rogue will do to contest and then decide what their best course of action is. Although it appears right now the best course of action is to give Nuke a little bit more money so he can finish that death cap.
Now, as a reminder to our viewers, there is a bit of an issue with the dragon timer, so when we see the same dragon spawning over and over again, the timer unfortunately breaks. But we can keep our eyes on the minimap. It's going to be spawning in about a minute when you see that little hourglass. I still think we're a little ways away from the 5th dragon of the game, as both teams find themselves at 4.
Yeah, no one's at soul point, so at least for now, it's not the most significant objective on the map, although it wouldn't surprise me to see someone trade it for a Baron.
I mean, the advantage for Rogue right now is that BDS are rightfully paranoid to start off a Baron. Larson is now level 16. The Casio has 3 completed items. The advantage of not being able to buy Poots is that you can, in fact, get your upgrades quicker of your core itemization. And a level 16 Casio is a thing to be feared, assuming that you can get the damage off. And that's crucial because, as we've heard from pretty much every player right now, tank items are very strong. And Cassante is quite the wall that must be broken through. And
also, just as a baseline, Casio, one of the highest skill cap champions in the game, right? It's essentially 80 carry and a mage in one in terms of what you need to be hitting to maximize that damage output. Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. So see if they're up to the task. Of course, the components are there. A lot of CC if they find the right targets. A lot of kill threat, but thus far have not really been able to finish the job on any of the key targets. And of course, in the extended fight, the Corki and the Hwei just really start to do work.
The other thing BDS are cautious of is Rogue's ability to sneak the Baron. Of course, Casio plus the Sejuani as a duo could actually just kill the objective outright. But
I mean, we all saw that first game where they kind of, Flacket was, you know, taking the Drake and Rogue just kind of wandered up top and got Otacon.
Yep.
I think everyone's painfully aware of the sneaky objectives being on the table, although Ice going to start this one knowing that he has the time and that Rogue really aren't in a position to contest. And Rogue, while they do have a fast Baron,
I'm surprised they even came here. This just, I mean, this was kind of a waste of time from Rogue, that they just walked up, watched the Baron die, and then they just kind of returned to lanes. I feel like they could have used the time instead to just clear out all of the vision on the top side. They could have pushed out that top wave, gained control of the mid, maybe even getting a few deep wards to threaten a potential pick onto BDS's side. If all they're going to act as spectators, I feel like this game is only going to get harder as the death cap now completed for Nuke.
Well, it kind of speaks to the state that they're in, that they feel like that's the best option, praying that someone is going to have a bad back, someone is going to recall in a sloppy location that they might be able to find a pick, instead of doing something like you mentioned, which is a much more kind of guaranteed, at least small value, a little bit of vision that might help them contest this next objective.
The problem for Rogue now is that because they didn't use that window, BDS have now refreshed, all of their wards are replenished, and they can completely cleanse out the little vision that Rogue did have. If we can have an opportunity, observers, I'd love to see what Rogue see on the map right now, because I have a feeling, yeah, it's not a lot. They're being completely suffocated out, and BDS will continue to push their advantage slower and deeper into the enemy side jungle, and they'll keep these waves pressured as well. Look, top getting pushed out now, mid as well. Irrelevant's quite happy to concede the pressure on the bot side of the map as he looks to try and tick over to level 16, and this is the point that becomes very scary for Rogue. While I don't think they're going to be too concerned about BDS trying to rush the objective down, it just puts that constant pressure onto Rogue to have to face check, and the risk of face checking into a Maokai and a Hwei is a very scary thing indeed.
Yeah, BDS though, I mean, they've got a 3-item Hwei and just about a 4-item Corki. I feel like they could play a little bit more aggressive, but don't want to do so when double TPs are available. So maybe hoping to just chip away a few more of these small things that they can take from Rogue before they go for the major objective. Can obviously also just play a slow game and poke, as you see here. Really tough for Rogue to do anything at all. Execute just lost half his health for nothing. Severing Bolt coming out as well, making the recalls that much harder.
That is some very good poke. Patrick quickly trying to lifesteal, but this is the window where BDS need to try and force something. It's a good health trade. Execute is forced to back. You have a numbers advantage. Now is the time to go.
And going they are. Malrang, level 13, smite available. Will it be the fight or the Baron? Ice playing this one slow with 113. Passive healing, keeping 113 relatively topped up.
Malrang is the person you have to be cautious of. Looking for a steal. Max looking to try and give some vision.
A split call here. No one stopping Malrang from getting in the pit. 5K.
Ice is now very low as well, taking a lot of damage from the Baron.
Waiting for more members of Rogue to walk away before they try to burst this down, but they know Malrang can see.
This is very awkward.
But good discipline that they haven't burned anything else. They're waiting for Execute to go down. Malrang now getting into the pit. Might just trying to keep hitting the Baron. I'm not sure what the plan is here because Rogue are now slowly being pushed back. Execute down. Nuke, godlike Malrang still in the pit. The rest of Rogue just trying to poke over the wall to stop their jungler from going down to hope to steal something back. But Paris coming in. Looking to get the job done. It's a bit of a split call from Rogue, but it doesn't matter. They get the Baron. They'll get the fight as well. Irrelevant there to take down Adam. Bit more damage onto Larson, but Archangel's keeping him healthy. It's all falling apart for Rogue here.
It's Rogue that actually pulled the trigger. BDS's patience pays off as Patrick now running for his life. Irrelevant is looking to run him down.
A lot of spears. Slow goes in, severing bolt, nice backstep. Patrick, good movement.
He stays alive for now, but the Baron secured the team fight one. BDS in firm control can now look to begin their siege. Resets definitely need to come through, but they're going to secure this top tier 2 before they do.
Now we look at the fight. You can see that Rogue know that they want to go for this because BDS are holding it. They forced this out of Rogue.
Yeah, but they don't put any pressure onto Ice. Again, like, it's this backline. Look at Nuke's positioning, finds that initial execute onto execute. Malrang, he's stuck in the pit. There's no potential follow-up, and when he tries to disengage, it's Paris that follows up. Unfortunately for Irrelevant, the ultimate was used onto a CC immune target, so he wasn't able to bring him over the wall, but the damage was done, the objective was secured. And it's just a matter of BDS using their range very effectively. They feel like that there is no threat to their carries. It is consistently a front-to-back affair. And I feel like that if you were to look at the damage graphs and the damage taken at the end, you'll see that Irrelevant and 113, incredibly high damage taken, but Nuke and Ice, they've done a great job of just circumventing that threat, and it's been very difficult for Adam to really threaten that backline.
And it's so hard when you fall behind in a game like this too, because you lose that vision control. Larson forced to flash and retreat, execute off to the side. At least getting a little bit of damage down to Nuke, and now Olaf on the chase. Bit of revenge coming in for Adam as Nuke tries to hold the line as best he can. Irrelevant might just be able to save him though, trying to take Adam out of the exchange, but down goes his mid laner. Now it's Irrelevant versus Adam, but Adam in trouble. The rest of BDS trying to collapse. All of Rogue running away from their own base, trying to get out with just the pick, but they've already lost both their carries.
The best thing for BDS to do now is stop the bases. Paris and 113 can just keep throwing saplings into the brushes, interrupting these bases, and you can allow Ice to just break open the base. I feel like Ice should just be running towards the base right now. He doesn't need to be chasing for these kills. Perhaps the priority is on the Dragon instead. And it looks like that they're going to look to try and secure the Soul. Either way, another teamfight win for BDS. Adam finally finds a way onto the backline. He does take down Nuke, but you can see the cost of being able to find that.
This is rough, man. That last 30 seconds were like a game of Dead by Daylight. They're like hiding in the lockers, just desperately trying to recall back to base, just to hold on a little bit longer. BDS so far ahead. Rogue, I don't even think that we can call that like a last-ditch attempt, a last big fight. It was just members getting caught out, Rogue trying to make the most of it, and overall now, you said it, it's only going to get harder. I don't really think, short of BDS making a massive mistake or Rogue finding miraculous engage angle, there's really no way to bring this one back.
I mean, like, it feels as though it's a matter of time. Rogue is very likely to go 1-2 on the weekend, and BDS, I think a few question marks raised after their first game of the weekend, but overall looking solid. I think that they still have that reliable team fight, what's the word I was looking for? Consistency.
Yeah.
Yes, consistency that they were so very well known for. And I think, like we talked about it on the podcast, Nuke, Ice, and Irrelevant as a foundation is a strong foundation to build around. Yeah. And you look at the scoreboards and you can see why. Very consistent players, very good carries. Nuke rose to the top of the ranks in mid lane throughout 2024, and is continuing to demonstrate it alongside Ice, who is involved in 17 of the team's 19 kills.
Yeah, everywhere that he is needed to be. Yeah, starting to look more like a threat. Certainly a little rough around the edges in a few areas, but once they make it into those fights, they've been nothing but consistent. Alti moving in. I might try to find the angle, but again, the range advantage just makes it so easy for BDS to just poke. If Rogue try to step up and contest, they're going to be losing 50% of their HP bar. So even the smallest step forward, they need to be ready to turn it into a full engage, or they're just going to slowly lose this one.
BDS is just that much more durable with this Chem Soul at their back as well. The longer the fight goes on. Slowly sieging away, slow and steady has been the name of the game for BDS, not over-forcing, leveraging their range as you highlighted. They secure the bot inhibitor, they'll turn their attention towards mid lane, staying as a 5-stack for now.
Larson with death cap, but there's really no TP wards for him to get to. Malrang finding the initial engage onto Irrelevant, not ideal. Adam already ulting, but doesn't really have a target to stick to as Ice goes 1v1 versus Patrick and clearly comes out on top. Bit of a shield to back him up from Nuke. Rogue with an 80 carry down, minions coming in, and inhibitor already falling as well, a second likely to follow. It's all on Larson, no flash, but he does have the death cap.
I mean, he's gonna have to find some crazy play to turn this one around. 113 drops the ulti.
Awkward, not maybe hitting those priority targets as Irrelevant gets a bit more space. Larson now in trouble though, good engage coming in from Paris. 1-1-3 now following up. AP Maokai might have enough damage as Larson desperately tries to hold on, but the Ignite stopping the healing, making sure the Rel can get the job done, and that is it. Rogue, some good looks in the early game, but ultimately BDS just better in the fights, more consistent, playing better together as a team. They will go 2-1 in week 1 of the LEC Winter Split.
An easy ace to round things out. BDS, a solid performance, 24 kills to 8. A bit of a slower one. We saw